eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God.
We bled in the fields, we frozen.
Free people without roots are just leaves in the wind. Welcome to the Modern Patriot Podcast. I'm John Tiegen. I'll be your host, where I speak truths, honor our founders, and train the modern warrior for the battlefield ahead. So today's episode is just the foundation for everything that's going to follow in the series. So before we can talk about the courage, liberty, and standing against tyranny, we need to remember what we're standing on and what we're standing for. So every nation has its roots, traditions, principles, the truths that give it its life. So if those roots rot, the trees will fall. America's roots right now, as we all know, they're under attack. So here we go. So, all right. So I'm going to start with pretty much the foundational blueprint. There's not going to be a lot of detail in this one. It's just going to be, it's just the beginning of the series of what's going on. So the more you watch, and hopefully the more you'll remember, or you'll be taught new things. I know going through this stuff myself, I was taught a few new things, but again, this is kind of what lays the foundations to bring us back to where we should be and to help give you the information to push back to where we should be. So instead of looking at my ugly mug as I talk, I put a little picture slideshow together, so you don't have to look at me the whole time as I'm giving you information, and I'm just too lazy to put some real detail into this thing. But again, let's jump right into it so I'm not wasting too much of your time. So, we all know the Constitution wasn't written to restrain the people. It was written to restrain our government, and I think a lot of us know that, just like the Bill of Rights. But, the founders had just fought a war, a pretty major war against, the world's strongest military and, overreaching monarchy that taxed us, regulated us, and ruled without consent. They knew that the natural tendency of power is to grow, they centralize, and eventually would crush liberty. So they got the Bill of Rights. It's a list of thou shalt nots aimed at the government, not the people. The First Amendment doesn't say, the people may speak freely if allowed. It says Congress shall make no law restricting speech, press, religion, etc. We all kind of know that for the most part. Some of us seem like they don't. But again, John Madison, one of his quotes, "If free men were angels, no government would be necessary." So then he continues, "You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself." Yeah, we know that ain't going to happen. I mean, look at our seating politicians. They're not leaders. Quit calling them leaders. They're politicians. So just imagine building or training a guard dog that's powerful enough to protect you, which, again, a lot of us have, and just think of a Belgian Malinois. But, again, without a leash or a fence. I mean, just picture what would happen if you trained something like that and you had no way to truly control it. Well, the Constitution is the leash and the fence for our government power. I would actually add in the Bill of Rights as well with the Constitution. Let's say the Bill of Rights is more the leash and the Constitution is the fence. So in the 1700s, well, let me jump into actually because again, these ain't going to be detailed. I'm just going to kind of give you a picture of what's coming up in the next episodes. So the Judeo-Christian ethics weren't a culture option. They were actually the moral compass that made freedom sustainable. In the 1700s, the Bible wasn't just a religious book. It was the primary source of law, education, and the moral instruction in America. The founders across the board, even those, that weren't personally devout, but all of them were religious, recognized that society without shared moral boundaries would eventually lead freedom into chaos. And we're kind of seeing that now. Noah Webster, he was the father of our education, said that the moral principles and precepts contained in the scriptures ought to form the basis of all our civil constitution and laws. Because he knew without the moral compass, all of our founders did, without the moral compass, laws became pretty much useless and rights shift with political wins. And we're seeing that. So free people need internal restraints. We do. We can't just go off our own moral standings. We have to have a guide. And so, the only restraint left, if we don't have that, is external force, government control. And we're seeing that what's pretty much going on in DC right now. What Trump what's Trump doing to bring back law and order. Look at all these other cities: Chicago, New York, LA, Denver, Aurora. Again, it's nothing but chaos because we've got rid of the moral groundings for our nation. The easiest way to kind of think of the morals is kind of like, think about a ship with a rudder. It doesn't make the ship move, but it keeps it from drifting left or right and into the rocks. So I don't know why I have a problem saying this damn word for some reason today, but the Judeo-Christian ethics is the rudder for America, and it always has been. And that's why our founders, again, used it that's our rudder to keep us going in the right direction. Then everybody has a civic responsibility. It wasn't just a hobby. It was a duty for every citizen, and you were expected to fulfill. But nowadays, we can't even get 30% of the population to even get involved in voting in their civic duty or being part of the civic duty. Early Americans didn't see citizenship as a passive status. It was an active role for everyone. Voting, militia service, jury duty, public debate. These were just part of life, not an optional extra. But nowadays, it's not even in the forefront of anybody's thought. Maybe that's just, again, kind of goes back to our grandparents and their grandparents. Just us losing our way. So in many of the colonies, able-bodied men were required to participate in the local militias and attend training days. So again, every able-bodied man was a militia. Just like today, it has not changed. That's why our founders put in there the militia and the people. There's a comma. So town meetings were public. Attendance was expected. I get it. We got 500,000 people or more in some major cities like Colorado Springs. We're reaching up there. It's kind of hard to do that. But again, I think we need more town meetings. And I think it should happen when people can actually show up. Again, that's what you should be doing as a politician. You should be working around the people, not against the people, and holding your meetings during regular work days instead of after work hours or on the weekend, so people can actually show up and participate. To me, that's just a scapegoat. That's something that needs to change, in my opinion. Sorry, guys, but again, you're a public servant. You don't really get to choose your own work hours. You should be choosing what the people want. But again, Benjamin, here's another quote. There's a couple quotes in here that I added. But again, Benjamin Franklin, a republic if you can keep it. So keeping it requires effort. That's what he's saying. So those people that sit there and say, well, my vote doesn't count. Well, it definitely is not going to count if you don't vote. So that's just a cop-out. That's just being lazy and cowardice, in my opinion. And I don't care if that pisses you off, because you are a freaking coward and you're part of the problem. Start becoming part of the solution and get involved. So we all have, because that, there's consequences to neglecting your civil duties. So, when citizens outsource responsibility to so-called leaders and check out, guess what? Those leaders stop answering to the people. What do we have? They don't answer to us anymore. We're going to have to fight back to get our power and control back. So that's when the government stops fearing the citizens and starts ruling over them. COVID 2020. Look what happened to our nation. Look what happened to local cities, small towns. Holy freaking cowballs. I don't know how half of you people didn't even wake up and start fighting back. I know I was. I was standing up constantly trying to get business owners to get involved and push back, because that was straight up freaking tyranny, man. You want to talk about being pissed off? I don't know how you guys hid in closets. Civic's responsibility is like maintaining your own home. If you never clean, repair, or check it, decay is going to set in. It's going to crumble. And as soon as you're living in someone else's house under their rules, and that's, again, That's where we're at. We're in their house, under their rules, not our rules anymore. It's freaking crazy, man. You know, the Constitution wasn't written to restrain the people. It was written to restrain the government. You got to remember that. The U.S. Constitution was signed in 1787 after Articles of Confederation failed to keep states unified and stable. You know, the founders feared centralized power as much as chaos, so they designed a system that divided authority and locked in protection for individual rights, not government rights, not government protection, individuals. They understood that power corrupts always. Their solution, again, put chains on the government, not the people. But right now, the chains are on us, and we got to break those chains and put them right back on the government. You know, James Madison, you know, I'm going to say it one more time. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. Thomas Jefferson, bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution. Our government is out of control, man. I mean, just with a lot of these agencies, the way they're using them, I go in a little bit more detail about them. But again, the FBI, ATF, Homeland Security, CDC, the CIA, involved in assassination of a sitting freaking president, censoring people, arresting, citizens, and, surveying citizens. Again, our government is out of control. We need to rein it in. The government's not going to rein themselves in. The founders designed features for the separation of power. You have executive, legislative, and judiciary. Yeah, you're right. I can't say that damn word still. The checks and balance, each branch can block the others to a certain extent. The Bill of Rights, again, it's a direct do not touch listed at Congress. And again, our government, it's if it's not in Article 1, Section 8, the feds cannot do it. It gets given back to the power of the state or the people. So again, the 10th Amendment, everything not given to the feds is reserved to the state or the people. It doesn't say just the state, states or the people. So again, just because the state says doesn't give them the right to continue doing what they're doing. It's us standing up against them and pushing back. So here's a couple, again, just examples of restraint in action. This 1794 Whiskey Rebellion. Washington, he used force to enforce the law, but he did not stay in power longer than his term. He showed balance of authority and restraint. That's a leader. That's somebody who's willing, who's not there for himself. He's just there to guide the nation in the right direction. Marbury versus Madison. This was 1803. The first major Supreme Court case to check another branch. So you can go look again. I'm not getting in detail on this episode, but further down, again, I'll be getting into more detail to kind of give you firepower, us firepower to start freaking pushing back. So executive orders acting as law, again, CDC, evictions, stuff, all that crap. OSHA, the vaccine mandate, again, no, you cannot do that against the American people. And a lot of people allowed it and freaking took it because you don't know your rights. You don't know your protection. Again, that's why I'm doing this, because I see so many comments and I'm just like, oh my God, like people don't know what's going on and they don't know how to protect themselves. Federal agencies creating regulations with force of law without congressional vote. That's why I brought up EPA, ATF. They cannot make their own laws. It's enforceable. That's why, again, it's about taking them to court. Again, yeah, it sucks, but that's what, people are donating so much freaking money to, the NRA, again, just violating our rights, but they won't, a lot of times they don't take up certain cases because it doesn't benefit them. But in the long run, it does because it benefits us all. But anyways, Congress passing thousands of pages of bills with no one reads it. What the hell kind of crap is that? That's a complete violation. It's crazy what our government is doing to us. You got to remember, man, the government is like the guard dog. You need to protect your home, but if you don't keep it leashed, trained, and under control, it will eventually turn and bite you. The Constitution, remember, is the fence, and the Bill of Rights is the leash. or however you want to say it. You can say the Constitution is a leash and the Bill of Rights is the fence. It doesn't really matter. You know, you can't keep liberty alive if you forget where it came from. So I'm going to leave you with this one. We've laid out the blueprint our nation was built on, principles that keep freedom standing tall. So I'm going to take a quick pause and just thank the folks that kind of help. They're going to help me keep this message moving forward, and yeah, look into them.
Welcome home, warriors, what a firefight. 13 hours holding fast through the night, while they sat in shadows hidden from the fray. We fought, we bled, we led the way. Coffee coaster reward, that was our praise for a 13-hour stand and the lives we tried to save. But we still stood tall, remembering their names. Debriefed in Tripoli, shipped to Germany. Our warriors welcomed home, we watched from afar. Silence louder than the mortar fire. One quick breath before DC. Tickets home, bought on our own. One last debrief before going home.
So traditions are survival tools, not old-fashioned habits. The founders knew freedom without morality is just anarchy waiting to happen. So now we're just going to kind of cover some of the traditions that help hold the line, and again, why it matters. So kind of the same thing I did before. Instead of looking at my ugly mug, which I'll probably be saying this every single episode because that's just who I am. Again, just kind of put another little slideshow together, get you something to watch instead of my head moving back and forth and stuff like that. So again, why do traditions matter? So in the early republic, traditions weren't just nice things that they always did. You know, they were the anchors that kept free people from drifting into chaos. Even opening Congress with prayer reminded our leaders, I hate using that word, but reminded them that they were accountable to a law higher than themselves. Civic education, you know, it helped build citizens capable of governing themselves instead of relying on the elites. You see it now. I mean, especially a lot of these low-income people on welfare and SNAP and all that crap. Our government is enslaving us. But again, honoring veterans, that keeps the cost of liberty visible in the minds of each new generation. So again, taking them to these events about veterans and what they did, their sacrifices. You know, the traditions were not about the decorations. It was about the discipline, the unity, survival, and the future of our country. That's the whole point of traditions. So in the 1700s, again, the Bible wasn't just a church book. It was the primary school book, the primary school textbook. Children learned to read using verses that taught morality as well as the language. Laws and civic codes were drawn from biblical principles because our founders knew morality was the glue that holds a free society together. So they knew we had to have that base, that foundation. I'm going to keep going. So even some skeptics among the founders recognize that without shared moral law, the republic will eventually collapse into lawlessness and division. And what are you seeing nowadays? What's been going on pretty much, you know, since really 2012, even kind of before that, a lot of division because just the moral law is eroded. There is no base anymore for moral law. You know, go back to some founder words again, you know, Noah Webster. The moral principles and precepts contained in the scripture ought to form the basis of all our civil constitution and laws. John Adams, our constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. What is our government now? They have no morals up there. I mean, you have everywhere from, you know, infidelity to pedophilia to incest. I mean, our government is just, it's Sodom and Gomorrah up there in D.C. It is it's insane, and it's spreading like a freaking herpes. It's freaking insane, man. Again, you know, their words weren't just poetic necessities. They were the operating instructions given to us for the continuing of our republic. Because without the moral self-restraint, the only way to keep order is external force. Again, what's going on in D.C.? They had to bring in that extra force for more government, more control, and then now they got less liberty. That's what's going to happen. Actually, that is what's happening, not what's going to happen. It is freaking happening. Look at all the extra laws that we're getting from our government. So, again, the shared morality, it built trust between neighbors. It reduces crime and made genuine self-governance possible because there was a moral guidance. Now we don't have there's no moral foundation in this country no more because it's not being taught. Parents don't freaking teach it. These freaking whack job teachers, not all of them. Some of you teachers are still really good. But again, the majority of them nowadays, you got these just whack jobs that should be in a mental hospital teaching our kids. And a lot of parents weren't paying attention until 2020. And again, we got to get back to the foundation. So again, the public school primers included scripture and moral lessons as standard reading. That's why our country was operating so good back in the day. That's also the reason why they ended slavery so fast. Because they saw the morality of it and it wasn't good. And again, people want to blame America. America did not exist until 1776. It was the British that brought slavery, not America. So anybody you start seeing that, you better start pushing back. America was the fastest country in history to end slavery. No other nation, we did it. And our founders, if you don't know, if you go back in history, they actually tried to end it even sooner. But the king said no. The British said no. But the people of America, overall, majority didn't want it. They wanted to end it. Anyways, so the oath of office, we all know, usually was sworn on the Bible, acknowledging accountability as something above political power. I know people say, well, people do it on the Quran. Well, why don't you read the Quran? There's more hate than anything in the Quran. I'm not going to get into it. You can go research yourself, and I really don't care if you disagree with me. The truth is the truth. Maybe one day I'll do a comparison, but I think there's enough information out there you can figure it out yourself fairly quickly. The Northwest Ordinance in 1787 mandated that schools teach religion, morality, and knowledge as essential to good governance. So Engel versus Vital in 1962, this is where our nation really started going down the crap hole. Prayer was removed from public schools, severing a daily link between education and moral groundings. Really look at history. You can actually, if you go back, you can really start seeing how it starts to degrade. You really can. So the rise of, it became the idea of your truth versus absolute truth. Your truth replaced the shared principles with personal preference. So sorry, I did that backwards, man, but you know what I mean. So the true truth kind of went away for personal preference, for the social justice crap, or even our legal system increasingly ignored objective moral standards in favor of shifting political and cultural trends. That does not do a society justice. It does it injustice. We have to have a base. We have to have a foundation, and it's gone. It is not there no more because we've lost our rudder to the ship. We're just drifting in the wind right now, and we gotta link that cable back up to the rudder and start moving back into a better direction. Because right now our traditions, they're disappearing. The memory of why they mattered are disappearing too. The vacuum is quickly filled with dependency on government and a lot of division amongst each other. I mean, just go around again. Instead of saying Merry Christmas, say Happy Holidays. I mean, why? It just makes no sense to me. So tradition is the memory of the people. You erase it and the people forget who they are. In the founders' America, tradition wasn't just ceremonial. It was the glue that bounded 13 different colonies into one identity. In 1776, colonies had different economics, religions, and accents, but they shared traditions. Public prayer, shared holidays, marking sacrifices, and education that was rooted in civic duty. That's nowhere to be learned. I mean, hell, they were being taught pronouns and crap in 72,000 different genders and whatever else they're teaching. So again, it's children learned law and liberty, not just in the classroom, but in the marketplace, the church, and the town square. It was everywhere, people. A grandfather could tell his grandson about Valley Forge, explain, the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the boy would pass it on to his son. Not just the facts, but the actual meaning of it. Again, my parents didn't teach me a damn thing, except for maybe how to go and find skunk weed on the side of the highway. That's about it. But again, is that their fault, or is that their grandparents' fault, their grandparents' fault? It has to start somewhere. But again, I think, I don't know when it really turned. Some people say it was actually in the early 1900s, but definitely 1960, we started really taking a dive. So, I mean, opening Congress with public meeting with prayer. I mean, even our first Continental Congress in 1774 opened with extended prayer and scripture. I think it was like a 2-hour prayer scripture reading. So it wasn't just a symbolic, it was the statement that governance must answer to a higher authority. People are more scared of people than they are of God himself. Independence Day celebrations started immediately with public reading of the Declaration of Independence, memorial gatherings named fallen soldiers, individually keeping their sacrifices personal and real. We don't do that no more. I know I've been to a couple. We just kind of say, oh, yeah, these guys, they don't actually name them. Some places do, but some don't because it takes too long. Oh, I'm sorry. Name them. Put their names out there, because when your name is read for the last time, you are finally forgotten. The Declaration, the Constitution, and Federalist Papers used to be standard reading and debated material. I never read the Federalist Papers in school. Again, this is 80s, 90s. So, I mean, I know we read the Declaration, we did the Constitution. Don't remember too much about them, but I know we did them. I'm pretty sure we skipped over the Second Amendment. But again, I mean, we need to get back to our roots, and we got to enforce it. Again, it starts not in D.C., it starts in your local government, your local schools, your local town, your local community. You want to fix the nation, you got to start small and work. And yeah, you have to start from the beginning again. So everyone knew, back then they were part of a shared national story. That's what helped. That's what traditions do. Reading the Declaration wasn't just history. It was a reminder of the principles worth defending. Knowing our traditions, knowing our history, it enforces it to the next generation. So stability and tradition gives confidence, again, in the future, even as times change. But if it's not being taught, or is being taught in the negative way, again, without the shared traditions, the we dissolves into an isolated us versus them groups. And we're seeing it. George Washington's farewell address warned against, the same thing, to foreign manipulation and tyranny. We have a lot of foreign manipulation and tyranny. Unifying traditions gets replaced with division, symbolic acts tied to political agendas. I mean, look at the gay parade. I mean, holy freaking crap. Why do we got to celebrate someone's sexuality? Why is that even a freaking thing? I don't care what you have sex with. We definitely don't need a parade. Don't need you walking freaking naked downtown. There's no morals in that. National holidays are, reframed as grievance days rather than celebration of unity. Teaching only our kids mistakes, erases our victories, and nothing's going to improve. When Independence Day becomes only hypocrisy, young people disengage from defending the liberty of it. We cannot allow that. We got to get our roots back. We got to let our kids know. I know I text my kids every holiday, remind them what it's for. And just do it. Who cares? Even if they're in front of you, still text them so they read it as you're telling them. Prayer and public recognition of God now labeled unconstitutional despite no such language in the Constitution. The founding documents skipped or distorted in education. National symbols like flag etiquette, the anthem, the pledge is mocked, ignored, or politicized. I mean, we have the black national anthem, which to me, that's just freaking ridiculous. That's stupid. That's just division. That's what they want. And the fact that people still go to these sporting events and encourage it, it's asinine. That these teams are playing a separate national anthem than our national anthem. There's only one national anthem for our nation. Otherwise, it's just a division. We're not united if you have two anthems, especially for one certain group of people. Yeah, the black anthem. That's division. That's separation. That's not unity. Traditions are like trail markers in the wilderness. Remove them and the path fades. People wander, they get lost, stop traveling it altogether. And the wilderness doesn't care, and neither will our government that benefits from your disorientation, your lack of knowledge. So if we lose our traditions, we lose our memory. And people without memory will follow anyone who tells them what to think. So keep the markers, guard the story, and pass it on.
American military families' journey began with a singular mission: to support veterans grappling with PTSD and suicidal thoughts. This compassionate and determined initiative has evolved into a charity that has touched countless lives. The dedicated team of AMF has paved a path of hope and recovery, placing boots on the ground to personally reach out to struggling veterans before it is too late. Their approach encompasses everything from community meetings to one-on-one therapy sessions and interventions, creating a lifeline for those in dire need. This hands-on method has proved successful, offering a safety net for numerous veterans. Over the years, AMF has organized events to raise both funds and awareness, showcasing the critical role each of us can play in this mission. As they celebrate 2 decades of life-saving work, they invite everyone to join a special event on July 12th. This milestone commemorates 20 years of dedication, underscoring the importance of supporting veterans and their families. It serves as a celebration of life, hope, and the unwavering spirit of those who have served. Join in this significant occasion, honoring the past and inspiring the future.
Citizenship in the Founders America was a job description, not a participation trophy. So, the founders didn't see citizenship as a title you just carried just because you were born here. It was an active role. Okay. It was a job that came with responsibilities, and a lot of us are dropping that responsibilities. I've been voting pretty much since the Marine Corps, since I was 18. That's when, pretty much I was in the Marine Corps the first time I could even freaking vote. And, it's mail-in ballots. The military should be the only one having, hopefully I didn't fade, only one having mail-in ballots. Everyone else should be voting in person. And I did just see a thing where Trump is going to try to, he's going to remove mail-in ballots and the voting machines, which to me is great. I think there's no free society that can work, a true free society and a legit free society. You can't have mail-in ballots. It's too much fraud. Voting machines, again, too much fraud, too much corruption. So it's, yeah, we got to get back, to the shared understanding of the power and take our power back. So again, here comes the picture. So, look at my face. So, shared history is the glue that holds us together. When kids are taught America was founded on oppression instead of liberty, they aren't just learning the facts differently. They're learning to despise the very nation that they live in. And don't tell me you're not seeing it. especially colleges. Holy freaking crap. Get your kids out of that cesspool of stupidity and wasted money. That's really what it is. It's a waste of freaking money. Start finding colleges that actually teach. You know, some of these colleges, I had it on top of my head, but again, we're more about actually teaching pastors and reverends and based on religion. You know, all these Ivy League ones, Harvard, I believe, and Yale, and again, they've lost their ways, man. They've lost it. You know, again, without common moral and historical ground, a country fractures into competing tribes. They can't unite, won't unite for anything. The founders understood that liberty could only last if the people themselves kept it alive, and it's dying. You know, it is dying. So, you know, military service by law, most able-bodied men were expected to drill and maintain arms for community defense by the time they were 16. You can't even look at a gun if you're 16 nowadays, it seems like. We had kids fighting for us at 9 years old. 9 years old, people. And again, back then, you're expected to fight at the age of 16. We cringe at that. Our founders were way smarter than we were at the age 50 when they were freaking 16. They knew way more than we did, understood way more than we did. Militias, you know, weren't the fringe or extremist groups. They were everyday farmers, blacksmiths, merchants, fathers, sons, you know, ready to defend their towns at a moment's notice. And they did. They fought against the British. It wasn't organized. It was organized somewhat. But again, at Lexington and Concord, it wasn't a standing army that fired the shots heard around the world. It was the local militia. Again, merchants, fathers, preachers. It's insane. We're becoming a nation of freaking cowards. You know, voting wasn't just a right, it was an obligation. Many early communities, failure to participate could lead to public shaming. Vote. Votes weren't cast blindly back then. Citizens would often debate face to face. They had balls before casting their ballots. You know, serving on a jury was seen as a direct way for the people to check government power. Juries didn't just decide guilt or innocent. They often judged whether the law itself was just. That's why they have the jury duty. That's why they select the way they do. This concept known as jury nullification was widely understood in the early republic. Now it's just like, oh man, I gotta go jury duty. It's a civic duty. It's again, when you go and you get it, it's to keep our government in check, not really to see if somebody's guilty or not. I mean, it is, but it's to make sure that that the judges are doing it right. I mean, too many judges put their own biased opinions in a lot of freaking things. I have personal experience. But anyways, Benjamin Franklin, again, a republic, if you can keep it, it is up to us. It's not up to the government. It is up to the people to keep our republic. George Washington, the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty is finally staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people, not the American government, the American people. They weren't just empty quotes. They were a warning. The founders were saying this system will not survive without us doing our part. Plain and simple. You know, New England town meetings, citizens gathered to openly debate and vote on laws and policies that directly affected them. Nowadays, hell, what Colorado passed, trying to had like almost 700 bills this year. That is nuts. We don't need that many laws and regulations and crap. We need less. This is what you get when you don't vote, when you don't get your family and friends involved. You know, there's no hiding behind anonymous ballots or social media rants. Back then, you know, you stood up in front of your neighbors and made your case. They had balls. And they could talk. They had a moral grounding. Yeah, some people still fought. Some people still had the duelings. I mean, hell, even our own freaking politicians had their own duels. But again, before the revolution, ordinary citizens organized these groups to share political news and coordinate resistance against British policies. The founders liked the intent of their time. Fast, wide-reaching, and citizen-led. Not government-led, people, citizen-led. So the low, voter turnouts, many skip our local elections, even though even school boards, city councils, county officials, they're the ones who impact our daily lives more than Congress does. And we skip them. You don't get involved. You don't know who it is. I know people running for school board in another city. It's important. That's our future right there. They guide our kids to our future. So if you want more activists, libtards in there that have no morals, that think they're a freaking cat and they need a litter box to go to the bathroom, that's who's teaching our kids. So again, while activists push agendas, the majority of us stay home, giving the minority full control of the conversation. So too many believe defending liberty is someone else's job. It's all of our jobs. It's not a politician's job. It's not a veteran's job. It's not a judge's job for sure, because they definitely don't do it. It's all of our jobs. The mindset leaves the public vulnerable to overreach and abuse of power. Get involved. It's not somebody else's job. So picture like this: a republic is like a campfire. If you stop tending to it, it's going to die out. If you think someone else will tend to it, eventually no one does. Neglect breeds corruption. We're seeing it. Corruption breeds control. We have it. Control destroys our liberty, and it's happening. So, the civic responsibility is how you defend freedom without firing that shot. Get involved in local governance, juries, elections. It keeps tyranny in check without the violence. It's the first layer of our national defense. A disengaged citizen is easy. Citizens is easy to rule. An engaged one is nearly impossible to conquer from within. Our founders knew that. So, when citizens actually engage, they learn to argue, compromise, and cooperate rather than tear each other apart and kill each other. So, get involved. So, here's a couple. I have a. Now I can't even think. I call it my practical skills for the week. If you want to, again, pick one, pick all three, or not do anything. Again, it's on you. To get involved. So civic, a little civic drill, read the Declaration of Independence, identify three principles and be able to explain them clearly to someone else. Pretty easy. Traditions check. Choose one tradition in your family or community, make sure it's practiced, and explain to the next generation why it matters. Explain, especially to your kids, that's the next generation, or your grandkids if their parents don't do it. Especially if they're liberal, they definitely ain't going to teach it. A mindset. Take one belief about America you've accepted without proof. Verify or debunk it using original source, not just media summaries. And sometimes you're going to have to go back to probably pre-1960s when things started really getting whacked out. I mean, look at what they, just research George Washington. See what they did to a lot of his own writings. Look what they took out. Look what they replaced in. Check out the books. I mean, it's blatant. They're erasing history because they want to conform it to a different ideology, a different foundation. So liberty isn't a gift you receive. It's a job you do. The founders handed us the tools. We've dropped them. We got to pick it back up. We'll have no one to blame when our house collapses, when our foundation is gone. It is up to us. So citizenship isn't a spectator sport. It's our daily duty. Think about what that means to you and your community.
In the quiet corners of our hearts and in the sacred silence of memory, there stands a table, small, unassuming. It is not set for us. It is set for one who is not here. Today we gather in remembrance We set this table to honor the ones who gave it all and recognize the gravity of their absence. It is round, showing our everlasting concern for our fallen heroes. Draped in white cloth, it is pure, like the intentions of those who answered the call to serve. There is a place set for one, garnished with lemon to remind us of their bitter fate, and sprinkled with salt to remember the tears shed by those who miss them. The glass rests, inverted for their inability to share a toast, and the chair is empty for their seat that remains unclaimed. A vase is tied with yellow ribbon, a symbol of our determination to remember our fallen heroes. It holds a single red rose, a signal of sacrifice and of the blood shed to ensure our freedom. It serves as a reminder of the loved ones and friends who miss them each and every day. The Bible embodies the sustaining power of faith. Faith that strengthens us to endure and honors those who gave everything for a nation founded on God's truth. And above all, a candle burns, its flame steady and unyielding. For Jesus is the light of the world, and through him, we hold on to hope that we will see our loved ones again.
All right. So, tradition keeps a nation grounded, but when things go sideways, you need more than memories. You need the right gear, the right training, and the right mindset to move, fight, and survive in a moment's notice. So guess what? This is Tig's tip. Yeah, you weirdos. No, that's not what I mean. So, first thing, you need an everyday go bag. It's like a 24, 48, 72 hour self-sufficiency. So I'm going to go down a little list, and I don't know. I do got a little scrolling thing also, but I kind of didn't like it, so I'm not really going to use it. So maybe I'll post this, maybe I won't, I don't know. But you can write it down, you can rewatch this. So a go bag is something you can grab quick. It's got everything in it, so you don't have to find nothing. I would probably have more than one for yourself because, again, summer, winter kind of a thing. Or, again, you can get one, a good hiking one that can kind of store winter, summer stuff at the same time. But then it's just a lot heavier. But anyways, this is a good one for 2 days of emergency. Some core items: water and water purification. They say at least 1 liter bottle. It's like a mini, like life straw. So one that kind of filters just drinking through the straw. They got them. Some food, survival food, MREs, protein bars, vacuum seal, beef jerky, whatever you can, even some nuts and stuff like that. I would try to pick as lightweight stuff as you can. Again, you can survive on minimal stuff even for 72 hours. So you don't really need a lot. 1 MRE can feed you for a whole day. It just takes discipline. Medical, I always have a medical kit, tourniquets, pressure bandage, some gloves, trauma shears, just your basic IFAC pretty much is what it is. But tourniquet, definitely have a tourniquet, has some pressure bandages, stuff like that. Again, just depends on the situation. The more medical stuff you have, the better you're going to be. So lights, flashlight, headlamps, whatever you want, but also have some spare batteries. Don't forget to have the spare batteries. So a multi-tool, a Leatherman, a Gerber, something like that. Navigation, a lot of people forget about that. So have a compass and a map for your area that you're going to be in. You can have more than one map. Again, that's up to you, but have a local map. So if you don't know how to read a map or a compass, there's a lot of outdoor stores that actually offer classes like REI. I actually took my kids, which I'm going to take them back again. But again, have those classes, know how to use that compass, how to read a map, and know what the lines are for. Have something that's going to light a fire for you, a Bic lighter, something that's quick and easy, waterproof matches, stuff like that. Clothes, Make sure you get the proper clothes. That's why I was talking about maybe having 2 bags. Again, weather appropriate layer, socks, gloves, bandanas, stuff like that. This is really simple stuff, but a lot of people don't think about that. Socks is going to be very important, especially if you live like in a wet climate. If you're going to be crossing a lot of rivers, you better have some socks. You don't want trench foot. That shit will kill you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. So self-defense, firearms. Have your firearms ready to go. The founders expected you to be capable of defending yourself, your home, or in your community. That means having the tools and the skills and the means to use it. Just getting your CCW and stuff like that doesn't make you a gunfighter. You need to be constantly freaking training. You need to be improving. I kind of came up with a couple things. AR, that's a really good self-defense gun, primary weapon. Having 7 to 10 30-round mags, but just because you have 30-round mags, do not shove 30 rounds. I would do 29 rounds. That way, if your bolt is closed, you can still seat your magazine. So a lot of people don't realize that. If you're using a red dot or something like that, make sure you have backup iron sights, and bring batteries for your optics if they require a battery. There are some that just run on solar, but if you have, again, just bring backup stuff. I'd even bring backup iron sights in case they break. Again, just depends on the situation. Have a quality swing and a weapons light. Batteries for your weapons light as well. So again, always have backups. One is none, 2 is 1, and 3 is 2. Kind of see how that goes. That's the military saying. Have a sidearm, so some kind of pistol. Whatever you want. I don't really care about caliber. Just 380 can knock people down just as much as a 45. Just takes a little bit more. It's about placement. Again, even small animals, something like that. But for that, I would use these as primary tools for protection, and have like a 22 for small game. So that's just my mindset. So for, again, pistol, you're looking at 3 mags stuffed, and for each weapon system, this is where it starts getting heavy. Have a minimum of 500 extra rounds for each weapon system. This is where it starts getting heavy. That's a lot. If you ever held 500 rounds, it's freaking heavy. You might have to have its own little special can, just like an ammo can. So, training, just go to the range monthly, dry fire at home, just practice, shooting from different, positions, cover, low light, test your flashlight in your house with the lights off, see how it feels, move around corners. Just don't have it loaded, so in case somebody scares you, you don't actually shoot them or shoot whatever. Knives, have a fixed blade or a folded one, whatever, kind of like the Gerber. Have a pry bar, for rescue or forced entry in case of emergency, paracord, a rope, something like that, 550, 550 cord, 50 feet. You can help you set up shelters, repair things, tarps, restraints, whatever you need. Think about also the shelter. They have quick little pop-up tents that are very compact now. I highly suggest get that. Or again, you can use a tarp. I'd rather use a tarp for something else with my 550 cord. But this is just ideas, people. This is not all be all kind of a thing. Solar chargers. Have solar chargers with solar power batteries. Rechargeable batteries. That way you never run out. Again, depends on what's going on. Look at Katrina, how long people were displaced for. Look at, some of these other disaster areas. Having this stuff ready to go is kind of what it's for. So you can, especially in your vehicle, in your trunk, whatever, you can have more stuff. But I wouldn't leave your weapons and ammo in that. Anyways, so have cash. Small bills. I wouldn't really have, large bills. People might not be able to do transactions for it because credit cards could fall. The rule of 3, 3 minutes out. 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter in bad weather, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Pack accordingly, people. So the mindset is what matters. Gear is useless without the skill. Train with everything you carry. Practice with it. Practice putting it away fast. Practice setting it up fast. Teach your family how to use the go bag. What's the purpose of it? So if you're the only person knows how to do it and you're the one that goes missing, you screwed your family. So again, just little things to slowly, kind of think about. You can't control the storm, but you can control whether you're ready for it. The founders didn't wait for somebody to come save them. They went and they saved themselves. They fought back for themselves, and you should too. So as I start checking out, and this is going to be a weird flow for me for a few, but so here's a little scripture for you to look up. Proverbs 22:28. Do not remove the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. And so I'm going to kind of lead us out with a prayer. God, help us remember the foundation you've blessed us with. Give us the courage to protect them, the wisdom to reach them, and the grit to live by. In Jesus' name, amen. So this is the first stone in the foundation of this podcast. And this moment from here on, every episode will build on what we've talked about today. And each episode will build on the one previous. So you can't preserve a house by ignoring its foundation. And we've been ignoring our foundation. So we got to protect the roots, keep the line, and never let this republic again forget what made it strong. I'm John Tiegen. This is the Modern Patriot, and always move forward.
Eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God.
We bled in the fields, we froze in the snow. No shoes on our feet, still we marched through the cold. From muskets and grit to the rising of dawn, we fought through the dark till the redcoats were gone. We signed with our lives, not just in ink on a page. Built freedom in fire, lit the soul of a nation.